Blessed Sabbath, brethren. Welcome to the BSM TV, where we are going to continue with our daily discussion, the discussion on the daily with the panelists who are on board today. My name is Mrs. Mazengera, and I am the one to be asking the questions on behalf of Pastor Moyo today. So I would like to welcome Elder Mashiri to the program.
Thank you. Good evening, pastors, and good evening, brethren, all over the world, and blessed Sabbath.
Thank you. And next to Elder Mashiri is Pastor John.
Blessed Sabbath, BSM TV viewers. We thank God for another week and another Sabbath, and we look forward to a great discussion this morning.
Thank you. And Pastor Dube, last but not least.
Blessed Sabbath, brethren. We thank God for this Sabbath being just the last one before the Day of Atonement. So it's a very meaningful Sabbath before the Lord, and for us as well, to continually reconcile ourselves with God.
Thank you. So we see we had the blowing of the trumpets, the new moon of the blowing of the trumpets, and we have been counting down. And as Pastor Dube has already mentioned, the Day of Atonement is coming on the 2nd of October, according to the Gregorian calendar. That's so the sunset of Wednesday, the 1st of October, to sunset of 2nd of October, Thursday. We are having the Day of Atonement for this year. So during this time, we are still on the days before the Day of Atonement. I hope everybody is searching themselves and preparing ourselves for the great Day of Atonement. But this is not our discussion this morning. It will cover together the daily, as we discussed last Sabbath with the panel, the present panel without myself. But I would like any one of the panelists to summarize what we discussed, the daily message that we had last Sabbath. I'm happy for Elder Mashiri or Pastor Dube, whoever wants to take us through, just to summarize what we discussed last Sabbath.
Yeah. It was only to show that the daily does not just begin with the old dispensation, as all the people say. We saw it in heaven, and it was the hour of prayer where there was more commotion, because that's when the devil changed his name from Lucifer to the devil, to Satan, because the thing that was very difficult for the devil was the daily, because those are the hours when God is worshipped. God cannot just start by giving the hours to people on earth without connecting them with what is happening in heaven. So he had to extend the worship which is due to him from heaven to earth. Then we saw that was the hour of prayer which the devil was against. And when he was thrown on earth, we see our two parents used to worship God in those two times, and God used to visit them face to face. And then after that, when they sinned, then that's when they started even to kill the lamb at that particular time. But it's not the time which, it's not the killing of lamb which started, but it was the time was already there. It had nothing to do with the killing of the lamb. Then even after they were, dismissed from Eden, we saw them coming to do the daily at the gate of the Garden of Eden. And then after that, we see the prophets who followed after the sinning of Adam and Eve. God wouldn't come face to face. He would come via prophets. And that's where we saw Enoch coming, and Methuselah, and also Noah, And after that, we saw Abraham. Abraham was a man of faith, a man of prayer, and they all had one common denominator, which is the daily.
Thank you very much for that summary. So we see, as you have stated, that the daily doesn't seem to have originated because of sin, but it originated way before. It was from eternity. So we've seen it in heaven, practiced in heaven. We've seen it down to Adam and Eve, down to Abraham. Now we want to take it from there so that we can still see whether this daily, at any point, did it at any point come to an end? Because now when you talk of the daily to people, they will be surprised. What are you talking about? So we want to explore and see whether from Abraham, do we still see any daily being mentioned? Because we see Abraham being called the friend of God by God, because he kept the daily, and wherever he pitched a tent, he first made the altar, and he commanded his household to keep the daily. So we would like to take it further, a step further, to see in Moses' time, do we see the daily being practiced? Shall we take it from there? Elder, can you take us? Do we have any evidence from Moses' time?
Yes. The reason why Moses and all the 12 tribes of Israel were taken out of Egypt, it was because God wanted to introduce them into their the appointed times. So all the times that were given to Moses were the main aim of taking them out, so that when they are as a nation, they would portray which times God is worshipped. So as we see in Exodus chapter 29, particularly for the daily, you start from verse 38. Let's hear God giving Moses the daily.
Verse 38.
Yeah, 38.
Verse 38. Now this is that which thou shalt offer upon the altar, 2 lambs of the first year, day by day continually.
Now, you see, that's when God wanted to introduce them to these 2 times. And we see, because they were in the time when Adam and Eve already started sacrificial offerings. And thus, on those 2 times, they still had to include the sacrificial offerings, even if those 2 times had nothing to do with the killing of lambs initially. But because now they have inherited the sin of Adam and Eve, which was supposed to portray the death of Christ by killing these 2 lambs, one in the morning, one in the evening. But those 2 times were still is binding. Now let's hear.
The one lamb thou shalt offer in the morning, and the other lamb thou shalt offer at even.
Right. So you see, one lamb is in the morning. And that's why it was called, in the Old Testament, it was called the morning sacrifice time or morning oblation. The evening was evening oblation. So those are the 2 times which the Israelites were given through Moses. And where were they coming from? They were coming from what is in heaven. Apart from the fact that on earth at that time, Christ had not yet died. It was imposed to Adam and Eve after they sinned. And they are the reason why Christ was coming to die on the cross. So they would practice those 2 times, not only to terminate by the cross, but to include the death of Christ, which are the sacrificial offerings. But the times had really nothing to do with the death of Christ, because we see them, as we are going to study, you will see the 2 times still continuing even after Christ had died. So those who are killing the lamb, it was before before the time of Christ. But the times had nothing to do with being practiced only on the old dispensation, as we are going to prove from this study. So on top of that, they were supposed to kill the lamb in the morning and kill in the evening. Let's hear.
And with the one lamb, a 10th deal of flour mingled with the 4th part of a hin of beaten oil, and the 4th part of a hin of wine for a drink offering.
So here we are. They were not only killing the lamb, they were still having flour or bread beaten with oil, and then also a drink of wine, which were also portraying to the body of Christ. So it was so hard because they had more than what we have.
Right.
What we have here, we have only the bread and wine. We don't have the killing of the lamb. But these ones were killing the lamb. On top of killing the lamb, they would take bread and wine. And also in the evening, same thing. So there's a dual offering, the offering of the lamb itself, and also the offering of the drink offering and the meat offering, which is the bread. Right, let's hear.
And with the one lamb, a 10th deal of flour mingled with the 4th part of a hin of beaten oil, and the 4th part of a hin of wine for a drink offering.
Right.
And the other lamb thou shalt offer at even, and shalt do thereto according to the meat offering of the morning, and according to the drink offering thereof, for a sweet savour, an offering made by fire unto the Lord.
Now, you see, the sweet savour comes with the 2 times. That's why God has those 2 times, inclusive with the emblems which point to the body of Christ.
Right.
And these were, because of these 2 sacred times, they would include the dying of the lamb, which was portraying how Christ was going to die, and also his body, the bread and wine, which was pointing to his body. And why bread and wine? Because the bread represents the body of Christ, the wine represents the blood of Christ. See, these were 2, the wine is the drink offering, and the bread is the meat offering. So they would have the offering of the lamb and also the drink and the bread. And that's what we see on Colossians chapter 2. When this, which was pointing to the body of Christ after the cross, which are the animal sacrifices. Let's go to Colossians chapter 2, verse 14. This is what God clearly in black and white in the Bible removed. Let's hear what he's removing.
Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us,
Right.
which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, and nailing it to his cross.
So there is an emblem, the ordinances. It's not everything he's taking out. God had a law which was called ordinance, which has to do with animal sacrifice. A law which had to do with statutes, which had to do with the festivals. A law which is called judgments, which has to do with what we do neighbor to neighbor. And a law called the commandments. These 4 have not been touched. These are the 4 laws we see descending to Moses on Mount Sinai. These are the 4. He did not blot them. But what he blotted are the animal ordinances. Where do I get it? On Numbers chapter 19. It will tell us the law called the ordinance. Let's hear chapter 19. Right, verse 1 and 2.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord hath commanded, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring thee a red heifer without spot.
Now you see the ordinance of the law. It is not the 10 commandments. It is not the festivals. It is not the judgments. It is not the new moons. But there is a law which the Bible calls the ordinance of the law, which is to do with the animal sacrifices. So when you go to Colossians chapter 2, verse 14, we find God now saying, he has now nailed to the cross the law on ordinance, not the 10 Commandments and not the festivals. Right, repeat 14. Colossians 2, verse 14.
Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us,
Right.
which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way and nailing it to this cross.
Right. So if you remove any law which is not the ordinance of the law, then you are taking off even the laws that are still binding. And because of the daily is not an ordinance. The daily time is the time when God is worshipped. But with those times, they were also killing the animals. And the animals are a law on ordinance. Now, these were against us. Why were they against us? Because they involved killing. What was the 10 Commandments saying? Thou shalt not kill. So these were imposed on them to perform them until the cross. So we see after the cross, they are not supposed to be done. The animals are not supposed to be killed. But the two laws had not, the 2 times which are sacred has not been touched. That's why we see even the early Christians keeping the daily. Now, on verse 16, then it will show us the remainder of these laws, which is still binding. Which are those? Verse 16.
Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink.
Right. So you see, in the daily, we saw them killing the lamb. And what else were they doing? They were taking a drink offering and a meat offering. This is what Paul is referring to. Let no man then judge you in meat, which is the meat offering, and in drink, which is the drink offering, which is the wine. That's why I see many churches still taking the bread and wine. Why? Nobody should judge them to say Christ has died. So why are you taking the bread and wine? No one should judge you. You should continue keeping those. Why? Yes.
Can I bring in Pastor Dube to further explain?
Yeah.
Because we see some of the churches, in fact, most churches, when we talk of the ordinances, I've heard of ordinance of feet washing, ordinance of the tithing, or there's a lot of these other ordinances. So we see some churches no longer have the feet washing in their churches, but you have correctly highlighted to say the ordinance which was against us. Pastor Dube, can you further elaborate the issue about these ordinances and why, particularly in Moses' time, God had to bring back this, or maybe kind of it appears as if he started afresh something that was not being done.
Yes, Elder has covered a lot there. That is also interesting. Just to add on, if you can go to Galatians 4, verse 24. Galatians 4, verse 24. Or maybe start from 3, verse 19.
Wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of the transgressions, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator.
Right. So this is an interesting point, because this was the sticking point even in the 1888 message, because when God came with this subject on exactly what we were discussing, the pioneers, he had already stood up and said the law that is being referred to here is the law that passed away at the death of what? Of Christ. Therefore, whenever they would meet the opponents that will oppose them, especially in this aspect of the ordinances, what was nailed to the cross, what remained, they would just say, oh, you are reading Galatians 3 verse 9. It's referring to the what? To the law that passed away, which elder was talking there. But we realize that when God sent the gentlemen work on insurance, that's why they confused the whole situation, because they said this, the law that is referred to is the moral law. And they are clear why it was the moral law, because it was added because of transgression. Where am I driving this, Pastor? Because we realize that why did God have to give the law back at Mount Sinai? Inspiration is clear here. It was because of transgression. So God had to give them the law, the moral law, to define what sin was. Because you see, when this was ordained, it was ordained in the hand of it was ordained by angels in the hand of the mediator, meaning there was a law which was relating to the mediator. And then there was the law itself. So when God gave the law of the 10 Commandments, where we are in Moses' time, he didn't just give it. He also gave the mediator. And this is where it becomes very interesting. That's where Elder was touching there. That God then started to clearly give these terms as to what was an ordinance, what was not an ordinance. So just to explain, or Elders is covered on what an ordinance is in Numbers 19, but I'd like to add more on that ordinances as well by Exodus chapter 12, so that we can see when we go to the New Testament, Exodus chapter 12.
Yeah.
Are you there, Pastor?
Yes.
Okay, can you read verse, say exactly which verse is interesting, verse 14.
14.
Mm-hmm.
And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever.
So we see when they were keeping the Passover, Pastor, they were to keep it by an ordinance forever. So there was an ordinance that was involved in keeping God's feast. Like Elder has explained, that whenever a feast or whenever God's law was kept, there was an ordinance that was observed. And that ordinance must have represented the mediator, because whenever the law was given, or being told, it was given in the hand of the mediator, meaning God wouldn't just give the law and leave the people like that, because now they know what is sin. Now they know what they have seen. So to leave them like that is disaster. So he gave them the ordinance. And we see now that the ordinance which they were having here, for example, was the killing of what?
Of animals.
Because verse 14 tells us that we had to take blood and put it on the what? On the doorpost. So it had to do exactly with the killing of what? Of animals. So the aspect then that you asked me was in terms of these ordinances, because the ordinance that is being removed here is an ordinance that was against us. That's what we're being told. So once you feel or hear Christ himself giving us exactly what exactly was to be removed in terms of these ordinances, I'll take you to Daniel chapter 9. Daniel chapter 9. Are you there, Pastor? Daniel chapter 9 from verse 26.
26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined.
Right? So he's talking about the Messiah when Christ was to come, what were we to expect? Right? Go ahead, verse 27.
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week.
We know this prophecy, it was the 7-year period which he remained with them.
And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease.
This is where I like it, Pastor. So people will tell you that we are the readers of the book of Daniel. So we should here Daniel is clear what was to end in terms of ordinances. What was to end? Sacrifices and
oblation.
So this is what are the ordinances that are ending at the cross. He doesn't talk about the daily. He doesn't talk about the feast. He is clear as to sacrifices and oblation. And you realize, as Elder has started this aspect in Leviticus chapter 2, because Elder has started nicely. So just to edit that, when we go into the New Testament, we really understand what was oblation that was involved. Right? Can you go to Leviticus chapter 2 if you are the pastor?
Yeah. Verse.
Start from verse 1.
Verse 1. And when any will offer a meat offering unto the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour, and shall pour oil upon it, and put frankincense thereupon. And he shall bring it to the Aaron's sons, the priests, and he shall take thereout his handful of the flour thereof, and of the oil thereof, with all the frankincense thereof, and the priest shall burn the memorial of it upon the altar, to be an offering made by fire, a sweet savor unto the Lord.
So there is another oblation there, Pastor, what you are saying, that the priest was supposed to burn the sacrifices or burn all the things, yeah? That's another Can you go down as well? So anyone who has a time can go through chapter 2 to understand, because it says what was to end at the cross?
Sacrifice
and oblation. So we need to know sacrifices, we know them, the killing of animals. But what about the oblation? Right, let's go ahead. Are you there, Pastor? Just go down, because of time, go down to chapter 11. So 2 verse 11.
2 verse 11.
Yeah.
No meat offering which ye shall bring unto the Lord shall be made with leaven, for ye shall burn no leaven, nor any honey, in any offering of the Lord made by fire. As for the oblation of the firstfruits, ye shall offer them unto the Lord, but they shall not be burnt on the altar for a sweet savor. And every oblation of thy meat offering shalt thou season with salt, neither shalt thou suffer the salt of the covenant of thy God to be lacking from thy meat offering. With all thine offerings thou shalt offer salt.
Right. Verse 14.
Pardon?
Verse 14.
Verse 14. And if thou offer a meat offering of thy firstfruits unto the Lord, thou shalt offer for the meat offering of thy firstfruits green ears of corn dried by fire, even corn beaten out of full ears.
Right. I can go and go, but you understand what was oblation? What was it that was called oblation? So in every meat offering, whatever they would do on the daily, there was a burning of these things, which was not really the lamb itself, but which was the meat things and the fruits or whatever they would bring then. So God was explaining to them that this is the sacrifice and oblation. And these things were to point straight to who? To the Messiah. When the Messiah comes, what does he do? Excuse me, what should he do? He takes away that sacrifice and what? And oblation. That's what I've been told there. So just to go straight adding on what has already been covered, can you go to Matthew chapter 26? Matthew chapter 26. From verse 26.
From verse 26.
Yeah.
And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave it to the disciples and said, Take, eat, this is my body.
Right. Accordingly, as we have started, we saw that whenever there was a feast that was to be kept, what was supposed to be there? We needed to have the sacrifice and oblation. So on this time of Passover night, they were eating the Passover lamb, and then there was also the oblations, meat and drink offering. So Christ is picking what was to be used when in the New Testament. And what is he picking? He is saying only bread. Are we there? Then, verse 27.
And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins.
So Christ has come in clearly according to the scripture. He removes everything, the burning of incense, the burning of everything. He's saying, you are no longer going to be doing this, But in the place, what I'm going to have, he is taking only bread and wine. Like Elder said, whenever there was a daily that was being done, there was bread and what? And wine. So these are the ordinances that Christ is taking away. And what is he putting in place? Bread and wine. So this is what we're having remaining in the New Testament era. Just closing before maybe I bring it back to Elder, just we see Paul then commenting clearly on this, right, on 1 Corinthians 10. Verse 16.
16.
Mm-hmm.
The cup of blessing which we bless, is it not the communion of the blood of Christ?
Mm-hmm.
The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body of Christ?
Right.
For we being many are one bread
Mm-hmm.
and one body, for we are all partakers of that one bread.
Right.
Behold, Israel after the flesh, are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar?
I like that. So he's coming out here and saying, when we go to Israel of the old, what do they have? They have sacrifices and oblations that related to the altar. But when we go now to the altar in the New Testament, we no longer have the sacrifices and oblations, for these Christ took them away. And what we have in place, Paul is clear, we have bread and wine. So you see, that's a lot of things that have been removed. You go to Leviticus, banning this and banning that and doing this. So much has been removed. And what has only been left is what the pastor is the sacrifices. What has been left, man, is bread and wine. And even that working of the priest, where the priest is the only one who was supposed to be burning and doing all these things, was again removed because as part of the system of ordinance that was there. And what we have now, Revelations 1 verse 7, what I say, Revelations 1 verse 7, 6 and 7.
Verse 6.
Yes.
And hath made us kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be the glory, dominion forever and ever. Amen.
So what we see, he has changed that same ordinance which was there, because you saw when we talk about ordinances, only the priests, Aaron, were the ones who were supposed to do that. But he has changed it and he has made everyone priest and a king. And he has given what you need to have when you are now approaching the altar in the New Testament: bread and wine. So Christianity and what the ancient Israel were doing were going parallel. They would all go to the altar, but what would you have on the altar? These ones, that we have sacrifices and oblation, a sign that the Messiah has not come. Then a sign that the Messiah has come, you've accepted Messiah, you remove sacrifices and oblations. And what do we have now? We only have what? Bread and wine. And this is why Paul is saying, when they come, because I don't know, maybe if time allows, but if you go to Ezekiel chapter 44, verse 7, it tells you that there was a person responsible to check these things first. He will come and say, you are on a Passover, you are on a daily, do we have the sacrifice and oblations? If those things are not there, that system of worship was not going forward. So that's what Ezekiel 40, should be 45 verse 70. Maybe just to read for the sake, then I give it back.
Okay, I just wanted us to move step by step, because yes, I can see you are aligning what was happening in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. But I wanted us to have more examples in the Old Testament after Moses to see whether do we see this continuation happening, or do we see things changing, or before we actually come even to Christ himself. If Elder, can you tell us a few more examples, which I know Pastor Dube has touched quite some of them in the Old Testament. Can you further give us more examples in the Old Testament before we actually now delve into the New Testament and see how this is now being translated in the New Testament?
Thank you very much. If you go to the New Testament, we have seen God giving the order that In Exodus chapter 29, the order was to kill one lamb in the morning, kill one lamb in the evening. And he has said it. If you go to Exodus chapter 29, he has said the reason why he has given that time. It's not like he wants them just to worship, but there is a proper reason why he wants them to do that. Go to verse, as you go on, 29, chapter 29, where you left. Go to chapter, verse 40.
Verse 40.
And with the one lamb, 1/10 deal of the flour mingled with the 4th part of a hin of beaten oil, and the 4th part of a hin of wine for a drink offering.
Yeah.
And the other lamb thou shalt offer at even, and shalt do thereto according to the meat offering of the morning, and according to the drink offering thereof, for a sweet savour and offering made by fire unto the Lord. This shall be a continual burnt offering throughout your generations at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord, where I will meet you to speak there unto thee.
Right. So you see, he's saying that's where we meet. And who else does he meet? Listen to that.
And there I will meet the children of Israel, and the tabernacle shall be sanctified by my glory.
Right.
And I will sanctify the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar. I will also sanctify both Aaron and his sons to minister to me in the priest's office.
Right. So he is stating clearly these are his appointed times. And if you go, if a doctor tells you, come at 10 and you go at 12, do you find the doctor?
No.
And we can
They've
see
missed
many
the
people
appointment.
calling themselves men of God. Do they know he's got time to meet the priests, to meet all those who are sanctified for his work? And he will sanctify even the congregation. We can see how people, are displaying that they have lost it. They can march the whole day without these 2 times. And yet God has said, I will meet you in that time, and I'll also sanctify the ministers. But they've lost. Yeah.
So those marching the whole day are like the prophets of Baal who were
Exactly.
calling the name of God, and nothing happened.
Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 18 and see what Elijah had. That's why God will say he is raising Elijah in the last days. Don't you see that Elijah has to do with the times? That's why he has been raised. Who was he contending against? The prophets of Baal. There were many. Ahab, who was leading Israel at that time, his wife Jezebel had prophets of Baal. And what is it in Baal worship? These pagan feasts.
Right.
Don't you see the prophets of Baal? There are many.
Yeah.
They are all telling you, Happy Christmas, Happy Christmas. And yet saying, we are the church of God. The prophets of Baal were there in those who were worshiping God. Those who were saying, we are leading the host, which is worshiping God. They were worshiping Baal. That's why God says, at a time when the people are worshiping Baal, he raises Elijah to show the proper times God is worshipped. Now let's go there in 1 Kings chapter 18, start from verse 25. You remember the prophets of Baal now under Jezebel, who is the wife of Ahab, the leader of Israel.
Yeah.
Elijah was alone against the prophets of Baal. There were numerous of them. And then how did he win the favor of God? He knew the times when God has promised to Exodus chapter 29 that he's going to visit them at that time. He's going to sanctify the congregation. He's going to sanctify even the priests on that time. Not anyway. So the prophets of Baal, what made them not worship God? Instead, they were worshiping Baal. It's because of time. That's why when we are asking about time, which time is that? Which time are you going to meeting? We are actually saying you're not worshiping God. You're worshiping the prophets of Baal. They are the ones who had no time. Now, let's start from verse 25. They went to Mount Carmel, and they now wanted to display who is worshiping the proper God. Elijah told them, you build an altar, and I'll also build my altar. Anyone who is going to call upon his God and there is fire which comes, then that God has got to be worshipped. So he won that battle because he knew the time when God has said, I will visit you. Let's hear verse 25.
Verse 25.
Mm-hmm.
1 Kings 18.
Yeah.
And Elijah, 1 Kings
Yeah.
verse 18. And Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you one bullock for yourselves, and dress it first, for ye are many, and call on the name of your gods, but put no fire under. Okay.
So now they do not want any cheating. The fire should come direct from heaven. And whichever God brings the fire on the altar from heaven, that's the God we have got to worship. Now, this way worshiping Baal, mind you, and Elijah was worshiping proper God. Now let's hear what happened next.
Verse 26.
Yeah.
And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it and called on the name of Baal from morning even unto evening, unto noon.
Do you see the Bible recording time? Because God is a God of time. From morning until when? Noon. They were calling their God who never brought fire. So it means they were ignorant of the times of God. Now let's hear more.
And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, cry aloud, for he is a God. Either he is talking, or he is pursuing, or he is in a journey, or peradventure he sleepeth and must be awakened.
Why is Elijah mocking them? Their God has no time. They're crying each minute. And the Bible is recording time. It was 12 noon. And Elijah is saying, they are worshiping their God. They are calling on their God at 12 noon. Our God had clearly said at the morning and evening time of oblation. They did not know that time. They did not know that the God of Abraham knows those two times of the daily. Now let's hear more.
Verse 29. And it came to pass, when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. And Elijah said unto the people, come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him.
Why is Elijah calling them? It is now the time of the evening sacrifice. The time that God has said in Exodus chapter 29, I will visit you. Now that time is approaching. Now he's calling them to his altar. So that altar for Baal has failed. There was no voice, nothing coming from heaven. They were just people heaped to call on God without knowing his time. Is it not what we are seeing? Is it not what we are seeing in Laodicea, marching all day without those times? The only thing, whether we are few or many or whatever number, as long as we know those times, we are winners. The prophets of Baal do not have time. They don't have time to approach God. They don't even know the time which is in black and white in the Bible. But those who knew God in the Bible, they know he's a God of the time of the daily. Now let's hear now, the time has come. Let's hear what Elijah does.
And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unto whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be thy name.
Mm-hmm.
And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord. And he made a trench about the altar, as great as would contain 2 measures of seed.
Why is he preparing that? He knows it's now the time to talk to God. Let's hear the next verse. Yeah.
And he put the
The
wood.
verse, the next verse. After that one.
And he said, do it the second time.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it.
So
the
they are
second
pouring water to prove there is no fire coming, and go to the next one after that one.
And it came to pass at
It
the
came to
time
pass when?
of the offering of the evening sacrifice.
Do you see it's the proper time God promised?
Yes.
Right and on time. What does Elijah do?
That Elijah the prophet came near
Mm-hmm.
and said, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel.
Who is Elijah talking to?
Mm.
The
It's
God.
God.
Why did not the prophets of Baal talk to God at that time?
They didn't know it.
Because their God, which they were worshipping, is not a God of time.
Mm.
That time had been given, and why God gave Moses those 2 times, it was a continuation from the Garden of Eden. Why the Garden of Eden had those 2 times? It was a continuation of what is in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So those 2 times, as long as they are not known, God, that's why we see in Patriarchs and Prophets, God saying, even Christians have an example of their prayers of morning and evening sacrifice. On Patriarchs and Prophets, page
Amen.
353.
Mm-hmm.
It says he looks and condemns all the worship which are done without those 2 times. Because they were done by the prophets of Baal. They just go the whole day, krura, like that. Nothing. Now here, let's hear what happened.
Let it be known this day that thou art God in Israel,
Right?
and that I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word.
Right?
Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord God, and that thou hast turned their heart back again.
So what happened at that time?
Good answer.
Next verse.
Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt of sacrifice.
Do you see what they said? The God who is going to bring fire is the God we should worship.
Amen.
The gods that were worshipped by Baal never brought fire. But Elijah's God, right on time at the 9th hour, at the time of the evening sacrifice. Now, you said I should give you the examples of people in the Bible who were keeping. Now, do you see Elijah was keeping the daily?
Yes. Yes.
Right. We want to see another one, another prophet. Esther.
But
Right.
there was an interesting point here. I'm seeing when I'm looking at we're reading the story of Elijah, it never gets old, this story. It's always interesting to see just exactly what made Elijah successful in this dialogue. It's because he knew the time. And then Pastor Dube, he gave a very good mention to something that we don't give enough attention to when we're thinking about the sacrifice, and even when we're reviewing the sanctuary before, we don't see the importance of the incense and the sweet savor that Pastor Due explained earlier today. So when I'm seeing Elijah, and last week we spoke of Abraham, last week we spoke of Jacob and Isaac, these are people who knew the importance of the sacrifice and who did it and was successful. And we see also, if we remember, and when we read before, even from Bible stories, how Moses, what made Moses, after successfully working with God for 40 years, the same Moses that was permitted to see the body of God. He couldn't see the face, obviously, because God said, no one can see my face and sin and live. But God showed him his back, right? So, but that same Moses, he failed to go into Canaan, the place in which he came to took the children of Israel out of Egypt for, because of one thing. He struck the rock. Because the rock was to be a sign or a symbol of Christ to be nailed once. And because of that, Moses couldn't pass over to see Canaan, meaning that
Mhm.
everything that is connected with Christ, his duty as our priest, as our redeemer, God values to a highest extent.
Mhm.
So this sweet savor that Pastor Dewey spoke of, right? If we can just go back to it a little bit to understand, because one might say there's animal sacrifice. What's the need for bread? What's the need for incense? What's the need for these priests were busy.
Mhm.
They will do the body, they'll do the
Yeah.
blood, they'll do the rituals as well of washing, of cleansing. Some will bring pigeons. There'll be so many different things going on, but they were not
Mm.
for no reason. Were they for no reason, Pastor? They had a purpose. So I enjoyed when he spoke about incense. We don't actually speak about it a lot, but if we go to recap some of the scriptures that talk about incense, we'll see the importance of it.
Mhm.
We just look closely and quickly at PP 353.2. 353.2. Before, I know Elder wanted to introduce another example, but this point is very important to realize that everything, when it came to the sanctuary services, everything had a meaning and a purpose.
PP
353.2.
35.2,
Yeah.
where it says the incense.
Yeah, if we start on the one above, actually, 353.1, where it says in
Okay.
offering of the incense.
Okay. In offering of the incense, the priest was brought more directly into the presence of God than in any other act of the daily ministration.
Imagine there was the body. Sometimes we think the sacrifice of the body was the most important, but here it says the offering of the incense brought him closer
Yeah.
than any other act in the sanctuary. So let's see. What else did it say?
As the inner veil of the sanctuary did not extend to the top of the building, the glory of God, which was manifested above the mercy seat, was partially visible from the first apartment. When the priest offered incense before the Lord, he looked toward the ark, and as the cloud of the incense arose, the divine glory descended upon the mercy seat and filled the most holy place, and often so filled both apartments that the priest was obliged to retire to the door of the tabernacle.
So, as we remember, if we briefly just recap the setup of the sanctuary, we know there was the two apartments, there was the outer court within the court of the temple. Within the within the two compartments, there was the holy and the most holy. In the most holy, that's where there was the Ark of the Covenant, right? So on top of the Ark of the Covenant, you know, there was the golden plated, the rails. On top was the two cherubims folded with their wings extended. There, that's where the mercy seat was positioned, right? So the glory of God often rested on there. Whenever there was a decision, it would glow up on one of the cherubims, but the mercy seat was the one between the cherubims, right? So it says here, the veil of the temple never went as high of the building, but only when the sweet savor of the incense extended up, that's when the visible glory of God would come and descend to the mercy seat.
Yeah.
Right? So all of this, right? We can speak too much about this, but I like the part if we jump to the next paragraph. The incense.
The incense ascending with the prayers of Israel represents the merits and intercession of Christ.
Right.
His perfect righteousness, which through faith is imputed to his people, and which can alone make the worship of sinful beings acceptable to God. Before the veil of the most holy place was an altar of perpetual intercession before the holy, and the altar of continual atonement. By blood and by incense, God was to be approached. Symbols pointing to the great mediator through whom sinners may approach Jehovah, and through whom alone mercy and salvation can be granted to the repentant, believing soul.
Yeah, so I just enjoyed the point when Pastor brought it up about incense, and I said, no, this part can't pass without us actually digging into just unfolding why the incense was so important. Pastor gave us many verses about the incense, but this is why it was so important, because by blood, the sacrifice, showing Christ as a sacrifice, but the incense is the one that shows his work after the sacrifice, being our mediator and the priesthood. So I just enjoyed, and I said, no, before we go into the next example, we have to just unfold why incense was so important. So we can
Amen.
progress with this.
Thank you, Pastor, for bringing that up. I think yes, Pastor Drew.
The Lord Pastor has said before we give the examples, I like the very paragraph that he read, the incense ascending with the prayers of the saints. Can you take it again?
The incense ascending with the prayers of Israel represents the merits and intercession of Christ, his perfect righteousness, which through faith is imputed to his people, and which can alone make the worship of sinful beings acceptable to God.
Right. So when we go about this subject of the daily, we saw as Exodus chapter 29, is the time in which God meets with his people and he accepts their worship. Yeah. But it's saying there, if the incense is lacking, and if as well the blood was lacking, the worship of sinful beings is not acceptable to God.
Yeah.
We discussed this, why Cain was not respected, because God doesn't respect the worship of sinful beings unless there is incense and blood. So you wouldn't just come to God and say, I'm worshiping her, so because I'm worshiping, I'm keeping the Sabbath, God will be happy. No. He wants that service that makes, or that simply means a lot what is taking place. It means this is a conveyor belt to remove your sins and then leave you a righteous person so that you are acceptable before God. So you see that the daily, therefore, which we are discussing here, was a subject that is called, it's the main central pillar of everything, because no worship will be acceptable without the daily. Just adding before I get back to Elder, just go back on what we were reading there. PP 352.2.
PP
352.2.
Okay.
At the daily service.
The daily service consisted of the morning and evening burnt offering, the offering of the sweet incense on the golden altar, and the special offerings for individual sins.
So this is what we term daily when it was properly given to Moses. What are things involved? One, offering of burnt offering. Two, offering of sweet incense upon the golden altar. And then three, the special individuals for sin. So the main purpose of the daily was to take away sin, so that when God meets people, the worship is acceptable. So it then makes sense that on every holy convocation, you don't keep without the incense. That this incense was given because God talked to the 10 commandments, so they were referring to other feasts. The 10 commandments itself, the Sabbath, you don't keep it without the daily. And the purpose being that your worship is not acceptable. Just finish it, Pastor, there and see the point there.
I think before we finish it, because I'm seeing we've got a lot to tackle really, but I just want us to flow with because I had asked for further examples. If we can have further examples before I give it back to you, Pastor, let's hold off that one. So we have a few more examples. Otherwise, people will be saying, you took Moses, you took Elijah. Can Elder give us one or two more examples? Then we can come back and finish more here, because I want us, time permitting, I would want us to even go to the New Testament. Elder, do you want to give us a few more?
Right. So we saw Elijah. Now let's see another prophet, Ezra. Remember, it was it was not allowed for them to mingle when they are marrying. So there were some reports that some of them had married strange wives, and which was a sin. So they came to the prophet Ezra to report that. So let's go to Ezra chapter 9 and see how Ezra tackled it. Did he approach God any time, or was it the appointed times that he was going to tackle this incident? Let's go to verse 4.
Verse 4.
Mhm.
Then were assembled unto me everyone that trembled at the words of the God of Israel, because of the transgression of those that had been carried away. And I sat astonished until the evening sacrifice.
So the report came to Ezra, but what did he do?
He sat there astonished.
He sat astonished, but he can't speak to God.
Mhm.
Because now he needs to speak to God for pardon of that sin. So he had to wait for the time. I'm not saying anytime you can't pray. You can pray anytime, but those prayers are going to be analyzed at the ninth
Appointed
hour
time.
and third hour.
Mhm.
God will never do what he did not promise. He said, I'll visit you on that time. As they were saying, that is the time for pardoning the sins.
Mhm.
And I'm sure Pastor Dube wants to take us to the Day of Atonement, which is future to us.
Mhm.
It is the time where he now analyzes the sins of the whole year. But
Mhm.
at what time? At also those two times. At the morning sacrifice time, which is the third hour, and the evening sacrifice time, which is the third. Those times are what heaven has, those times to control what heaven is.
Mhm.
And those are the times for the saints. Now here, they came to Ezra, assembled, and he sat astonished with what this incident brought until the time of the evening sacrifice. Now let's see what happened at the time of this evening sacrifice.
And at the evening sacrifice, I arose up from my heaviness, and having rent my garment and my mantle, I fell upon my knees, and spread out my hands unto the Lord my God.
Now you see, he's now talking to God. On the
Mhm.
next verse, you find he's talking to God now. Exactly like what Elijah did. Elijah was mocking those who were just using any moment to talk to God. Elijah knew which time God is going to respond and which time he promised he's going to visit them. And same as Ezra, if that is not proof enough, let's go to now here to make a law in Ezra chapter 10. To make a law for all the people that feared God to come at those times. Let's go to chapter 10. Ezra chapter 10. Verse 14. Yeah.
Let now our rulers of all the congregations stand, and let all them which have taken strange wives in our cities come at appointed times, and with them the elders of every city, and the judges thereof, until the fierce wrath of God, our God, for this matter be turned from us.
He had now to organize the whole land to come at those two times, to pray for this event, so that God pardons them. Was that not the importance of these times? Now, this is another prophet. But let's go to the next prophet, which is Daniel. The prophet Daniel, the man of prayer. We all know as the man of prayer. Daniel.
Maybe she can give us Daniel and then maybe list a few others if you have a few others, so that we give the opportunity to explore more. Yeah.
Yeah. So we go to Daniel chapter 9, though we are still in the Old Testament. So the New Testament, some will know. So he was somebody who saw that their time period in Babylon is almost up. Now he wants to know what is coming next. And we want to see what time he was prying into the future. What time he was praying, talking to God, asking when did God send the reply? Let's go to chapter 9, verse 20. Daniel chapter 9, verse 20.
And whilst I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God, here, whilst I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation.
So you see, when Gabriel was sent, exactly at the evening oblation or the evening sacrifice time, why would God send the angel to give the reply exactly when Daniel also was on bended knees praying? You see, the men of prayer knew the time of daily.
Yeah.
And you see next, the angels telling Daniel, you are most loved. You are loved dearly in heaven. Same expression as Abraham. Abraham was loved for these 2 times. Look at these 2 times. This prime minister called Daniel was loved, ruling the land, knowing the times to ask for anything. And God loved him dearly because he was connected to heaven. So when we are saying someone is connected to heaven, we are meaning that he's connected with those times that God has given to connect with humankind. It's no point professing to be a man of God without this time because you're not connected.
Okay. Thank you, Elder, for highlighting that. Now, if I bring Pastor Dube again, now we want to see, maybe people will say, you guys are just dwelling so much on the Old Testament. Can you shed more light? Jesus didn't have nothing to do with these times. Can you give us now, Pastor Dube, and maybe highlight the importance of the essence, the essence as you were mentioning it, and give us examples how this relate in the New Testament and even for us now?
I'll start from where I had left there, PP 352, where you had left the pastor says there was also offerings.
Shall I read the whole paragraph again? It's a small one.
All right, okay.
The daily service consisted of the morning and evening burnt offering, the offering of the sweet incense the daily service consisted of the morning and evening burnt offering, the offering of sweet incense on the golden altar, and the special offerings for individual sins. And there were also offerings for Sabbaths, new moons, and special feasts.
So we know that accordingly we would say, come to the feast so that you can find Christ. So you had asked them, that's what we asked about that. That's what is very important. So you'll find that at these appointed meetings, you would find Christ via the daily. So this is why we saw in the examples, as I go into the New Testament, it will be quite interesting. But before I go to that, so that I lay the ground nicely, can you read again the PP 351.4?
Not only the sanctuary itself, but the ministration of the priests was to serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things.
Right. So we are seeing that what we've seen in the Old Testament, or what we've seen being led by Moses, or what we've seen Elijah following, whatever, that's not only the sanctuary, so because we know that God said sanctuary to Moses, let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Right. Maybe when I get time, I would like to give David as an example in the Old Testament, but now I'll go to the New Testament to read us. But you'll find that this interesting point is this ministration of the priest, as well as the sacrifices that were offered, were all pointing forward to what we'll get in the New Testament. So Christ was the center of the New Testament. Therefore, he was modeled by these appointed times, as we shall see. Right, thus it was of great importance.
Thus it was of great importance, and the Lord, through Moses, gave the most definite and explicit instruction concerning every point of this typical service. The ministration of the sanctuary consisted of 2 divisions, a daily and a yearly service. The daily service was performed at the altar of burnt offering in the court of the tabernacle and in the holy place, while the yearly service was in the most holy.
Right. So this is where now we're going. We have understood these basics, that the daily consists of the 2 ministration, that which was done in the holy place and that which was done in the most holy place. So we go to our first example in the New Testament, in the ministration that was taking place in the holy place. And we see the same angel Gabriel coming with a blessing at the appointed hour. Now let's go to Luke chapter 1.
Right.
Luke chapter 1, verse 9.
According to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord.
Maybe, Pastor, just read the verse before so that we understand who is being referred to here.
Verse 8. And it came to pass that while he executed the priest's office before God in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord.
So this is talking about Zacharias, who was the father of John the Baptist. So we see that we are beginning the New Testament on the daily subject.
Okay.
What inspiration is telling us here. So the New Testament begins on the daily. Why? Because he was going to offer incense. Now we know that incense is part of the daily ministration. And that
maybe my question wasn't very clear. What I wanted us to do, yes, I can see you are answering, but you are taking us back. My question was, give us clear examples now that this was actually meaning Christ. So we want to see all these daily presentations or the daily ministrations was a shadow of Christ. So in the New Testament, how is Christ now fulfilling that?
Yes, I think maybe exactly where I'm going, that's where
you're okay.
Not on the right lane on that aspect. So that's why I'm starting that. When we are starting the New Testament, the first basis of the New Testament is John, who was to lead to Christ. Therefore, whatever we're saying for him, for the first one, they are beginning at the time of offering the daily sacrifice. So maybe just to finish it, then I go.
Okay.
Because everything has to have basis, yeah? If we come there, then people will not understand how it's going there. Right, just to finish it where you are reading, Pastor.
And the whole multitude of the people were praying without the time of incense. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said unto him, Fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear.
Thank you so much, Pastor. So we see, as well, picking the New Testament, the blessing that Gabriel gave to Daniel. We are seeing it in the New Testament again, being given about Zacharias, who was to lead about Christ. So the question, therefore, as you have asked me, becomes very plain. If Zacharias, who is the leader or the forerunner of Christ, is given a blessing at the hour of prayer, what about of Christ himself? When he came, he must have fulfilled every phase of it. So I want to take it straight as we behold him fulfilling these hours of prayer. Because in the Old Testament, where we read, we have not been told what exactly are these hours of prayer. We've just been told it was morning and evening. Never have we been told that it's this hour, that hour. But when Christ came in the New Testament, fulfilling the same subject, he then told us what these hours are. So as that Lamb of God, which was being killed at every hours of prayer, as we have seen, he was put on the cross at the hour of prayer. Now let's go to Mark 15, 25.
And it was the third hour, and they crucified him.
So he is being crucified at the third
Third
hour, which is the morning sacrifice. But for now, we would leave it that way so that when we explain it, it becomes clear that it was that hour of prayer. Then what happens on the following verse, verse 25?
After verse 25.
Yes. So the following from verse 25.
And the superscription of his accusation.
Or I just jump to verse 33 then.
33.
Mm.
And when the 6th hour was come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour.
Right. That's why I said when we read this, someone might miss the points, because when we go back to David, we will have seen this. But anyway, we'll leave it for now. But you will see that even the 6th hour was a time that God had appointed to meet with him. Now, verse 34.
And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is, being interpreted, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?
Right. So we've laid the basics here, Pastor, so that we can now take quotation so that we understand. Because if we read like this, someone can also say, no, these were not hours of prayer. It was just coincident. But we really need to lay the things clear so that Christ, he was laid on the cross at the third hour, and it took him 6 hours to die. Well, that was the shortest time ever, because 6 hours later, at the 9th hour, he died. Now, you see the other, they have to be broken the feet, because it wouldn't take a short time like that for one to die on the cross. But Christ already was dead. Because why? He was teaching this subject of the daily. So what time was it that he died on the cross? Was it the hour of prayer, or was it what? Now, let's go to Desire of Ages, page 657.
Desire of Ages.
Yes.
$657.
Yeah. Are you there, Pastor?
There's no
It's
657.
not 657.
756.3.
756.
Yeah, 0.3.
Amid the awful darkness,
Or
apparently
0.5. Start from 0.5. Because
0.5.
time we can't go back, but anyone who has time can see that at those particular time, it says the reason why there was darkness over Christ is because God had come down at the time of the 6th hour, because those were appointed times. So God had come down. That's why there was that darkness. But anyway, we want to see the last phase of it, right? When the loud cry is finished.
When the loud cry, it is finished, came from the lips of Christ, the priests were officiating in the temple. It was the hour of evening sacrifice.
Right. So are we there now? So that 9th hour when Christ was dying on the cross, inspiration is telling us that it was the time they were officiating the incense. And that was the time. Remember, even the message of Gabriel that we read to Daniel, he came at the 9th hour and told him about the death of Christ. And here Christ is on the cross. He is dying at the hour of prayer. So now we know, Pastor, clearly, the 9th hour is the hour of prayer, or the evening sacrifice. And here Christ is on the cross. And we are being told that whatever the priests were doing, they were following what Abraham was doing. That's what we've been learning. So, but they didn't know that the true lamb was already on the what? On the cross. I will not read the rest of the paragraph. Just finish that because we have time. The lamb representing Christ.
The lamb representing Christ had been brought to be slain. Clothed in his significant and beautiful dress, the priest stood with the lifted knife, as did Abraham when he was about to slay his son.
Right. So it's a continuation of that system of the altar, which we have seen, and they are busy with the lamb. Yet Christ is died on the cross. And what happens on 756.1? All is terror.
All is terror and confusion. The priest is about to slay the victim, but the knife drops from his nerveless hand, and the lamb escapes.
Yeah.
Type has met antitype in the death of God's Son.
You ask, Elder, where Pastor, you asked where exactly is the link here? We're being told clearly that that animal that was being killed at every hours of prayer met antitype in the death of Christ. So this is why Christ went on the cross, being the third hour, the time which the animal was killed. And at the ninth hour, the time which the animal was killed, he completed the daily ministration. So
Mhm.
he was the keeper of the daily ministration. Even if he was on the cross, he never forgot the time. They say, oh, let me pull more time so that I die later. He died on time. He went on cross on time. He dies on time because he was a keeper of these times. And he's saying there, the way the great sacrifice has been made, the way into the holiest is laid open. A new and a living way is prepared for all. So when we come now to the New Testament, Pastor, the progression of this daily comes with a new and a living way. And that new and a living way is exactly what I said when I started and when we talked that he gave bread and wine.
Mhm.
It's a new and a living way. Because why? Christ is not dead. How was it done in the Old Testament? They would kill the lamb and take the
Yeah.
blood.
Mhm.
But here, Christ is alive and the blood flows while he is alive. You see that we are dealing with a new and a living way. And this is
Okay.
why when I give you the next example, which then shows or confirms that the evening hour was the hour of prayer, that Acts chapter 3, verse 1.
Do you see also, Pastor,
Yeah.
how God making it even for the people in that generation who understood the sacrifice from the Old Testament way? God showed even in the fact that when Christ gave up the Spirit and Christ said, "It is finished," what did God do? Come down. The same way how the incense used to go up and God used to come down. He did it exactly the same way at the ninth hour when Christ died, to give no excuse
Mhm.
for disbelief. It's
Okay.
amazing.
That's as far as how I also understand it. But I know that Pastor, you want to bring us to Acts chapter 3. But I wanted also, before we even get to Acts chapter 3, people might say, okay, Christ fulfilled, because there are many people that actually say when we refer to Christ having said, "I am the Lord also of the Sabbath, and I've come to fulfill the law," many people will actually say that seemed to stop. That seems to, because he has fulfilled, therefore there's no need for it to be done, for it to continue. Can I bring Elder again a bit into here? How do you then say, for those that say Christ has fulfilled, therefore there is no more need for the third hour and the ninth hour?
The same people say the same statement in Matthew chapter 5. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. The same statement, but they uphold what he's saying. They don't abolish. In Matthew chapter 5, are we there?
Yeah.
Right. Where it says, do not think.
Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill.
So was he taking away the law?
He wasn't taking, according to the statement,
because
he wasn't taking away. But
here he's talking about the 10 Commandments. Because
yeah.
the next example, he said, you have heard, thou shalt not kill.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, anyone who is angry with his brethren is even killed.
Mm-hmm.
Is it not the 10 Commandments he's talking about?
It is.
Christ clearly says he has come to fulfill. Is he taking it out? So why would they take the daily out when he's saying he came to fulfill the daily? That's what he did. He came to fulfill it. Why? To make sure it is known. Just like he did with the 10 Commandments, he came to fulfill that one. And he says he actually made it further acceptable. Because he says, you have heard, thou shalt not commit adultery. I say, just seeing with an eye you have committed. Has it made it more worse than what it was?
Yeah.
Now, when he said the same statement, I've come to fulfill the daily. He came to fulfill the daily. Don't you see? It's the same thing that he's saying. He's come to make sure everybody knows about the daily. In that, he actually dies on the 9th hour. He actually is nailed, is put on the cross at the 3rd hour. He's making sure those 2 times are known. Now, to make that as an example and say it was nailed to the cross because of that statement, it's not consistent, because the same statement he says for the 10 Commandments, and we are making sure it is kept. Yeah.
Okay. So if maybe because of time, I want to bring Pastor Dube here. When we are talking now, we're looking at the Day of Atonement coming, and these same times we are saying they are important, and yet there are other people who are saying no, they are not important. How can we convince people that the daily and the Day of Atonement are as important as the Sabbath and the festivals, the other festivals? Pastor John, I'm happy if you want to interject as well.
Yeah, I think Pastor John is there now. I think you can repeat the question.
Did you want me to repeat the question, Pastor John?
Yes, please.
Okay. What I was saying is, because we are drawing closer to the Day of Atonement, so many people who have disregarded the Day of Atonement and the all these other festivals, we are magnifying the daily and the day and saying the daily is very important. The Day of Atonement is important. How do we then relate the daily and the Day of Atonement? How can one see the importance of these?
Yes, so very interesting question, because the main subject here, which we started with the daily, was that these appointed times that God has given were times in which He meets with humanity. But when Adam and Eve sinned, there was an element that came into the human family that would make God not to accept their worship, and that element is sin. So daily then was now involved with the subject of what? Of sin. This is why we see Christ dying at that time. He's coming at the meditate at that time. But then sin cannot just be dealt as we call, because we saw that the ministration that was taking place in the Old Testament was a shadow of the ministration that is taking place where? In heaven. So that means we really need to know how sin is dealt with. And how sin is dealt with, it was the daily, and the extension of the daily being the Day of Atonement. So I will give you the code for that so that it makes sense. PP 5353. Well, maybe start 355. Such was the work.
Such was the work that went on day by day throughout the year.
So such was the work that went on day by day throughout the year. And what is that work, Pastor? Is the work of transferring the sins into the heavenly what? Sanctuary.
Sanctuary.
Yes, because there is an important aspect that we need, like in the New Testament there. Can you just read a little bit, Pastor? We don't read a lot because of time. Just a little bit where it says, in some cases, blood was not taken into the holy place, just on top of that. It's 353.2.
In some cases,
yes,
the blood was not taken into the holy place, But the flesh was then to be eaten by the priest, as Moses directed the sons of Aaron, saying, God hath given it you to bear the iniquity of the congregation.
Mhm.
Both ceremonies alike symbolize the transfer of the sin from the penitent to the sanctuary.
So this is where we are. Pastor. You could
Mhm.
transfer sin by two ways. Either you take the blood into the sanctuary, or you eat, the priest will eat the sacrifice itself. So eating the sacrifice will transfer the sin. And that was happening year by day
Yeah.
by day. And this was actually is the work that went on day by day. So at the daily time was therefore linked with the transfer of sins to the sanctuary.
Mhm.
And this is the same when we go in Antioch. That's what we are saying daily, because as I'm sure Elder has given some examples that we saw as they continued even after the cross, doing the daily. Their purpose was to transfer the sins, because no one will say Christ fulfilled everything. I no longer have sin. No, we do have sins, and the medium of dealing with sins was the daily. But what's the interesting part there? Are you there, Pastor?
Mm.
God commanded that. It says the sins of Israel being thus transferred.
The sins of Israel being thus transferred to the sanctuary, the holy places were defiled, and a special work became necessary for the removal of the sins. God,
So that's a clear point there. So what is the daily? What is the link between the daily and the Day of Atonement? It's a continuation of one thing,
yes.
where day by day your sins have polluted the sanctuary. Then God has set one day, which is the Day of Atonement, to take the sins from the sanctuary and stretch back to the owner, who is the devil. Because whatever we sin is a result of the devil. But sometimes we don't want to give the sin to the devil. We want to remain with the sin. So this is what was happening day by day. So as we are talking about sacrifice daily, we are transferring sin. We are transferring sin. We are transferring sin. Then on the Day of Atonement, we deal with that sin. So just finish the paragraph, Pastor. God commanded
that an atonement be made for each of the sacred apartments, as for the altar, to cleanse it and hallow it from the uncleanness of the children of Israel.
So all the year round, we have polluted the heavenly sanctuary with our sins. That's what in the old they would pollute a physical one, but in the new, we are polluting the heavenly sanctuary that we've been taught, because according to Acts, are you there, Pastor? Acts chapter 3, verse 20, just to see where I'm coming from. Acts chapter 3, verse 20, maybe from verse 18 there.
And he shall send Jesus Christ, which before was preached unto you, whom the heaven must receive until the times of restitution of all things, which God hath spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began.
Right, verse 19.
Verse 19. Repent ye therefore, and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out when the times of refreshing shall come from the presence of the Lord.
So there is no change there, Pastor, in terms of sin, whether you're in the old, whether you're in the what? New.
In the New
command
Testament.
still is repent from your sins. And he said this at the hour of prayer. Because this was chapter 3, verse 1. It was the 9th hour. So he's telling them that same way of confessions of sins that we have been doing in the Old Testament, do it even now. But now, in place of it, you have the new and the living way, bread and wine. And those sins that we are confessing now, he's speaking to the Christians there. They are not blotted out, Pastor. But what are they waiting for?
The times of refreshing.
The times of refreshing. So he is pointing forward to it now, the Day of Atonement in its antitype, where God is now will do the work. What Elder said, that God looks again and redo the cases and say, so and so throughout the year he has confessed his sins, and here are the sins in the sanctuary. And on this very Day of Atonement, this person is still confessing the removal of sins. And what has happened to it begins the process of blotting out sins. And we know that time of blotting out of sins began in 22 October 1844 being the Day of Atonement. Maybe we can leave that one, Pastor, because it's very important, as you've asked me. Controversy, page 399. Why it's so important? Because God wouldn't just say, oh, the times of refreshing, when they come, they will come on any day, yeah? You would have made them to come on any day, is it? But it will not. It will not fulfill time, because we've seen even Christ. He could have died on the cross at any time, even at 11th hour, whatever. But heaven was fulfilling time. They waited for the 3rd hour. Even Pilate would do anything that he would do. He was not able to crucify him until the 3rd hour. His death until the 9th hour. So even he is beginning that work of which we are discussing, of then the blotting out of sins, which have been confessed since the days of Paul. Because we're in the New Testament here, we're in the Old, where they are saying confess sins. Because some people will tell you that, oh, the law was nailed to the cross, so in the New Testament there is no more sin. But we are saying, he's telling them that sins are there. That means the law is there, because for you to know the sins, you need the law. And he's saying, confess them and wait for the time of the blotting of the time of the refreshing from the presence of the Lord, in which God was to send Jesus. And we saw in 1844 that was their message, that Jesus is coming again. And people think, oh, they preach that Jesus is coming. Jesus never came. He came, because that's what it says. He is to be sent in the time of the refreshing from the presence of the Lord. And when was he sent? Exactly on the day that God had set for the blotting out of sins, which is Day of Atonement. So, Pastor, can you just read that, then I can bring it back? We say it's in like manner the types.
In like manner, the types which relate to the second advent must be fulfilled at the time pointed out in the symbolic service. Under the Mosaic system, the cleansing of the sanctuary of the great Day of Atonement occurred on the 10th day of the 7th Jewish month, and when the high priest, having made...
So there is an important point there. In like manner, the types that relate to what the
second advent.
So this is how important it is to have the daily and atonement. For this is where the types that relate to the second advent are embedded. Meaning Christ never comes unless we are moving in these very types. It's amazing. So this is why I'm saying that type which is talking about, it is the 10th day of the 7th Jewish month. And this year is coming on which day? On 2 October 18. Now we no longer say 1844, but 2 October. I don't know, there's 2025 or what. But that's when that Day of Atonement is. But let's go ahead and see what they're saying. And when the high priest...
When the high priest, having made an atonement for all Israel, and thus removed their sins from the sanctuary, came forth and blessed the people. So it was believed that Christ, our great high priest, would appear and to purify the earth.
Quiet.
Sorry,
purify the earth by the Are you there, Pastor?
By the destruction of sin and sinners, and to bless his waiting people with immortality.
Right.
The 10th day of the 7th month, the great Day of Atonement, the time of the cleansing of the sanctuary, which in the year 1844 fell upon the 22nd of October, was regarded as the time of the Lord's coming.
I don't know. Do you see in Laodicean, the brethren, they were telling you that we are waiting for the second advent, but they are not there at the day. They are not there on the Day of Atonement. And then you can't be preparing to meet God when you are not meeting him at these appointed times. And you see that they were correct to say the time of the blotting out of sins was going to take place on 22 October 1844, being the Day of Atonement. So it's a continuation of this very subject. So when we talk about the daily, when do we come to say we have completed the daily? We complete it on the Day of Atonement. So there is no point in keeping the daily every year and then you are not there on the Day of Atonement. Because the Day of Atonement, once you say the daily is there, once you say the daily is there, the hours of prayers are there, then the sin is still there. Then the next thing that is there is the Day of Atonement. And this is why in 1844, Christ came exactly on the Day of Atonement to begin that work of blotting out sins. So as well,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Pastor, for that. I know this is a very vast subject, and there's a lot of things that we have kind of chopped and cut short because of time, which we can always include in future discussions. But because of time, I will ask each one of you, including Pastor John, I know today you've dwelt mostly on reading for us. May I start with you to say what is your message to the people this time, just for 1 minute? What is the message to the people that are listening that you want them to take on board from this discussion?
I think, thank you, Pastor. I think what we're seeing week after week on this study is we're unfolding more and more truths about the daily, showing how important it is, how essential it is, and also how much God cares about it, to the point that every single detail, there was many different things that were happening during the time of the sacrificing in the Old Testament. Many different things went on, sacrificing of we've seen blood, we've seen incense, we've seen there was also bread involved, there was also wine involved. But we see even in this, it all had a meaning. You see, God was very much intentional because we saw even from the very first session we had, from Adam and Eve, from Abraham, from Moses, it was something that God was continuing to preserve in mankind. And it's something that the devil knew is the connection between heaven and earth. And he's trying to distort all the time. Even in the dark ages, he tried to distort it as well. Even in our ages, we don't call it dark ages, but it's very much dark. As many people, they will take the communion 4 times a year, that's it, and call it Lord's Supper. It's also as dark as it was before then. So, we must understand how important this service is and keep it, because it's a privilege and it's what keeps us connected to God and what keeps us strong and going. Once we forgo these times, exactly how Lot did, we'll very much see that we'll go for chasing these things. Now, when things have happened, maybe members have been turned into salt, or the planes have been too much, we're leaving our belongings behind because we've left God's plain directions for us. So these times are more important for us. As we continue to unfold this, let us be impressed by just how much God cares about these times.
Thank you, Pastor. Elder, can you wrap it up for us now? What should people take from this discussion and even the previous discussions? What should we, the viewers and everyone who will watch who's been watching us and who will continue to watch these videos, what do they take on?
I can take from the verse, which is Daniel chapter 8, verse 14 in Good News.
Daniel 8:14.
Yeah. Everyone, Good News.
Yeah. It says, I heard another angel answer, it will continue for 2,300 evenings and mornings during which sacrifices will not be offered. Then the temple will be restored.
So the question before was when these dailies were being taken off. There was a question to say, how long should people stay without the daily? Because chapter 8, verse 10 had already indicated the daily was removed by the same beast who removed the Sabbath. Maybe probably for time, just read on verse 10.
Verse 10. It grew strong enough to attack the army of heaven, the stars themselves, and it grew and it threw some of them to the ground and trampled on them. It even defied the prince of the heavenly army, stopped the daily sacrifices offered to him, and desecrated the temple.
The word sacrifice was added by writers, but it's the daily which was taken off by this big horn, which indicated the beast who was changing the times and laws in the dark ages. But the answer, when Daniel is asking, how long? In verse 13.
Verse 13, to say, then I heard one angel ask another, how long will these things that were seen in the vision continue? How long will an awful sin replace the daily sacrifices? How long will the army of heaven and the temple be trampled on?
Now, how long were people going to stay without the daily? Listen to the answer, verse 14.
Verse 14 says, I heard the other angel answer, it will continue for 2,300 evenings and mornings, during which sacrifices will not be offered. Then the temple will be restored.
2,300 evenings and mornings. What are those? The time of the daily was counted. And which time we started from 457 BC to 1844. That's a fundamental belief. But do we know that fundamental belief was counting the dailies? 2,300 evenings, mornings, and evenings. Then in 1844, the daily should be brought back. We are talking of something which is a delayed match. It should long from 1844 be brought back to the people. Now, as we are now reading in Present Truth, we are saying it was long expected by God to be back to Laodicea. Until now, Christ is about to come, and they also express Christ is about to come. But where is this sanctuary laws being brought back to the people, which were prophesied by the angel to Daniel, to say in 1844, all these sanctuaries, the daily particularly, should be brought back to the people, which are the people of God right now. And what are they doing without the daily, which has been prophesied that in this time from 1844, which is the 2,300 evenings and morning and evening, it ended with 1844. That's when all the sanctuary laws are back. Which are the sanctuary laws? All the festivals they are nailing, all the daily they are nailing. But at least the beast which was changing in the Dark Ages had all the times, though in a counterfeit time. But they were there, and they are still there. Go to the church which was removing the dead. They are still there. Where are they not found? In the modern beast which is in Laodicea. Taking off the daily, now removing it completely out. Because the beast in the Dark Ages did not remove it completely out. It only substituted the time. Instead of the third hour, they take the daily anytime in the morning and anytime in the evening. But it should be the third hour and the ninth hour. At least God says, if you were called like them, it was far much going to be better. But you are neither cold nor hot. Those who are hot are keeping the daily. Those who are cold are still following the way that the beast changed. So God is preferring those, at least we have something, though cold, better than Laodicea, which is ready to be spewed out.
Thank you very much, Elder, for that. And I would like to really take this time to thank you all for the participation and the answering of the questions that I had this evening. So to all the viewers and listeners, you see that there is God is looking for people to repair the breach which was made. So shall we be the repairers of that breach? May God help us as we continue to pry into all these scriptures, and as the truth is being unveiled, may we take cover and be found in the soon coming kingdom. Thank you so much. We're going to continue.